Hi, this is Marisa Murgatroyd, founder of Live Your Message and Superhero Summits. And I'm here with Murray Gray, who is my husband and business partner. And everybody's been asking us, Marisa, how did you guys meet? How did you possibly find someone like Murray who's such an amazing complement to who you are? And it's kind of an interesting story. It's definitely an internet marketing love story, and it's something that does happen. But first, let me say that I'm pulling a serious favor here for Murray for doing this because he does not want to be here. He does not want to be in front of the camera. And up until now, I've been the one who's been the sacrificial lamb in front of the camera. So he is now saying hi publicly. Say hi.
Hi, everyone. I'm getting some serious favors out of this.
All right, but I wanted you to see his beautiful face and know the role that we play in the company together, and also just tell you how we met and how we fell in love and where we're going from here, because there's no better story than a love story, and we definitely have one for you. And the way that Murray and I met is in the front row of Experts Academy. So Experts Academy is Brendon Burchard's big online marketing event with 600 people. And I spent a whole year in Brendon's mastermind, really got a lot out of it. And one of the perks of being in the mastermind is you get to sit up in the front couple of rows. And Murray was at the time, you want to say what you were doing?
Well, long story short, I was living and working in London, England, and I sort of convinced my boss, Brett, that we needed to go to Experts Academy. We needed to be there, and we needed to experience the hoopla and the community. I just had a sense that there would be something amazing that would go down. I had no clue what that would be, but we jumped on a plane and we made it happen. And look, the truth is that can I say this?
You can say
this. What I thought to myself on the plane. I knew it was going to be a community of really special, motivated, talented people, and I said to myself on the plane, wouldn't it be funny if I met someone there who was a lot like me, who was looking in the same direction as me, wanting to go in the same, move in the same direction, and someone that would be more suited than perhaps many other people that I'd been with in my life. And little did I know that that's exactly what would happen. I would, on the very, very first day, in the front row of Experts Academy, I looked to my right. Yes, I looked to my right. And a couple of people down, I just caught a glance of Marisa, and I said to myself, that's someone I need to go and speak to, and someone I need to get to know better. I have no idea what's going to happen, but I have a strong feeling that she's going to be someone important in my life. And, well, that's exactly what's happened.
Absolutely. So what happened is, I think we actually talked in one of the breakout groups, and I remember meeting Murray and thinking, seems like a nice guy.
This is one of those events where Brendon encourages everyone to hug early and often. So I was very, very eager to get a hug in at the beginning of the breakout group and a hug in at the end of the breakout group. So I got my 2 hugs. And sorry to interrupt, I just wanted to put that in.
All right, well...
And I think she actually said that I didn't make much of an impression initially.
Well, this is a really interesting thing because I could tell that Murray was someone who didn't believe what he was saying. And at the time, he was working for a big real estate company, had a full-time job, was in a relationship that he wasn't happy in. And at the time, actually 2+ years ago, March of 2011, I actually had a day job as well. And I was at the tail end of a 10-year relationship that I wasn't happy in either. So you can imagine the two of us meeting at this moment in time before Live Your Message became what it is. We were both in jobs, we were both in relationships, and that meeting catalyzed a fundamental shift in both of our lives. It's like meeting each other was the key that we needed to really have the courage to jump into what we really wanted to be doing deep down. So flash forward 2 days, and Murray convinced his boss to buy VIP tickets, so he was at the VIP dinner with me. He was sitting across the table, and there was an open spot next to me. So he looks over, smiles, gets up from his spot, and comes and sits down next to me.
That took a lot more courage than perhaps that you would suspect, because she's a very motivated, driven, outgoing lady, and was clearly intent on networking the room. So I had it in my mind that I would finagle her attention for at least a couple of minutes and try and make a best impression that I could. And quite understandably, she instantly fell in love with me.
Well, It's not too far from the truth, but we proceeded to talk for 3 hours straight. And I remember a few of the people who were at the table with us. We still know and work with some of the people who are at that table, but we literally kind of tuned into each other and talked for 3 hours. And he had me laughing just the entire time. He's actually really, really funny guy, dry sense of humor, but if you get to know him, you'll see that come out. And so we talked for 3 hours, and I didn't think too much of it because I was in a relationship. I wasn't really looking for anything. And well, maybe he thought a little bit more of it than I did. So the next morning, right, was actually my birthday. It was my 33rd birthday, I believe. It's hard to keep track these days. Once you're over 30, forget about it. So it was my 33rd birthday, and the friend that I brought as my guest comes up to me and gives me a present and a card. And the card was actually a picture of a cat with a speech bubble. And the cat said, "Hi, my name is Murray. I like to be treated, pampered, and the center of attention." And of course, I had just spent the night before, talking with Murray for 3 hours. And it was just one of those really weird strokes of synchronicity where I thought to myself, you know what? That's kind of odd. I think I need to pay more attention to this guy. We had a great time, but then for something completely random, to happen like that, where Michelle did not meet Murray, she didn't know anything about Murray, and all of a sudden, here it was on the front of my birthday card. And not like Murray is a really common name or anything. And so I showed it to Murray and his business partner, especially for a cat. How many cats have you met named Murray? So I showed it to Murray and his business partner, who happened to be sitting 2 chairs down from me that day. And his business partner is kind of a brash, big guy who is super outgoing, super friendly. And he says, "What does that mean? You guys going to spend the day in bed together or something?" And Murray proceeded to blush, as did I. We both kind of brushed off the comment. But then that was the last day of the event. And I remember kind of dancing to one of Brendon's favorite songs, Black Eyed Peas, "It's Gonna Be a Good Night." We were jumping up and down, hugging each other, and going off into the city, into San Francisco, to hang out with some friends of mine. And that night, I get the most charming email that I've ever gotten in my life from Murray. And basically, he'd been on my website, he'd Googled me, he knew a little bit about me, he knew that I'd traveled the world, that I was a photographer, that I was a filmmaker, and basically said that he imagined us a year or 2 years later, after both of us had started our content marketing businesses, and that we were traveling the world together with our cameras. You with your camera and me with mine, and the only question is, where should we go? And he basically had that picture in his mind. And the way he said it, it wasn't sleazy, it wasn't weird, it was just super charming. And in the PS, he had an attachment of the picture of me and him in the cat card, because we took a picture. And he said, "For the record, I think we look good together, you, me, and that cat." And it was kind of forward, but super lovable and charming. And we basically proceeded to email for 7 months. And I've got to say that you don't want to get into an email love affair with someone who's as good at writing copy as Murray, because he basically had me completely head over heels, charmed and in love with him before we even had our second meeting. I didn't know whether we'd have chemistry. I didn't know much apart from we'd sat down and had an amazing 3-hour conversation together, right? So we knew that 7 months later, we'd be at the same internet marketing event again, Product Launch Formula in Scottsdale, Arizona. So here's kind of how it went down, and this is a little bit racy, so excuse me if it gets a bit off color, but how could I resist, right? So at the time, I was investing everything that I had in masterminds and trainings and events. So whenever I could, I tried to just bunk with somebody at these events, because I was spending all my money in the programs and the travel, and I couldn't really afford, $150, $200 a night on the hotel as well. And so Murray was the only person that I knew who was going to the event. And I literally wrote him and say, "Hey, this isn't a setup, but would you be interested in sharing a double room, right, with me?" And he wrote back, and apparently he consulted some female friends of his to make it sound as welcoming and non-threatening as possible, and said, "Sure, you can crash in my room and don't worry about it. It's on the company." So that kind of kicked off something. And what I got from Murray 2 days later is he wrote to me and tell them what you said.
What did I say?
You said,
Remind me.
You asked if you could fly out to Los Angeles and drive with me to Scottsdale, Arizona. So Murray was thinking ahead and realized that it might be a little bit odd if I just knocked on the door and there he was in our bedroom together. So I thought, maybe he should fly out and have, a whole day or two to kind of charm me on the road before we hit that shared room together.
And you got any guys in the audience will understand the significance of spade work. You have to put in the preparation time before you try and go to the next step with a lady. So my idea was to spend a bit of time in the car driving, just to, I guess, get to know each other. Let's just put it that way.
Absolutely. So I wrote him back, and basically I got this email when I was driving up to another Brendon Burchard event, and I was so distracted by the email that I actually took a wrong turn and ended up an hour detour out of my way just because I was reading while I was driving, which I shouldn't have been doing, but I got a little bit distracted when he proposed that and kind of excited. I could feel the excitement welling up inside of me. So anyway, Murray arrived, I picked him up at the airport. We had a night together in Los Angeles where he slept downstairs on the couch, much to his disappointment, and really just got along. And the next day we jumped in the car and drove to Scottsdale. And I did warn him at the time that I had no air conditioning in my car. It was like a $1,300 fix. I wasn't making the kind of money that I'm making now, and I basically was scrimping every penny that I could and investing it back in my business. So I said, we're going to be in a sauna on wheels to, buy a pair of shorts and a pair of sunglasses, and let's go drive through the desert together in the middle of summer without aircon. So we did. We got a little sweaty.
It was fine. I'm from Australia. I know what it's like to be hot.
Yes, you do. And I do as well, being from Thailand. So we drove together, and getting about 100 miles or so outside of Arizona, we pull off into a rest area just as the sun is about to set. And Murray does one of those moves of like the hug around, pulling me in to give me a kiss kind of thing. And I just kind of went with it and thought, you know what? I'm single, he's single, I like him. And we kissed. The reason why we kissed at that rest stop, though, is that Murray forgot to change his room from a single king-size bed to double bed per my request. And so he realized that along the way and thought, I better make a move now before she rolls into the room and sees there's only one bed. So he kisses me, I kiss him back. We pull up to the room, walk in, and I look and I see there's only one bed. So Murray says, tell me what you said.
I think it was along the lines of, I think there must have been a mistake at reception. If you like, I can go back and see if we can fix this. But if you're okay with it, why don't we just share the bed?
Yeah, and we didn't, get together that,
I was a perfect gentleman.
He was a perfect
gentleman. She was a perfect gentleman too.
Yeah, so we shared a bed, we might have kissed each other a little bit, but didn't go too far with that and enjoyed our seminar and brought too much information, right? Okay, TMI, I'm starting to blush right now. We're not this kind of public disclosure of our love lives kind of people. So anyway, that was our first date, and believe it or not, the first date lasted almost a month. So we hit product launch formula, then we stayed a few days in between at my client, Grace Grove's retreat center in Sedona, Arizona. Then we went off to Don Crowther's social profit formula. Then we drove back to Los Angeles. And a couple times I asked him, so when are you going back? When are you leaving? When's your flight?
When are you going home?
And he kept avoiding the question, right? He wouldn't tell me. And it turned out that he didn't even buy a return ticket. And I also had a third ticket to go see Brendon Burchard's High Performance Academy. So we actually went to 3 internet marketing conferences on our very first date, which lasted almost a month. And in between, he stayed at my house, and I flew all the way out to DC to basically get my dual citizenship for Thailand, and he just stayed home and waited for me. And I came back, we drove up to San Francisco, hit our 3rd conference, and he was supposed to fly out to New York that, the night the conference ended, and he decided to kind of bail on his plane ticket and drive me all the way home to Los Angeles along the Highway 1, just along the coast. We had a beautiful, beautiful time.
Totally worth it. I just didn't want to get on the plane, and so we didn't go to the airport. We just instead took the car and drove the coast road south to Los Angeles. It was an amazing drive.
It was an amazing drive, and then he took off, and I had no idea whether I was going to see him again, even though we had this amazing connection. Murray was actually on a round the world plane ticket. So he was going to be flying out from, Los Angeles. Actually, he flew out to, was it Thailand or Australia next?
Australia.
He flew off to Australia, and I was just going with the flow. I didn't say, what's going on? Where are we? Where's our relationship? But I did ask him, actually, no, that what happened before that is he said, so what are you doing for the holidays? And I was like, well, I'm going home with the family, My brother's having a baby. He's in Boulder, Colorado. My mom's flying out from Thailand to join him. So if you want to hang out, you're going to have to come with the family. And he was a little bit like...
I like this girl, but...
That's a little bit fast.
The whole family.
And then he realized that he wanted to see me again, so he decided to come and join the family anyway. So a week before Murray's going to fly out, my dad calls, and he's like, hey, my dad lives in Costa Rica. He's remarried to a Costa Rican. And he's like, hey, Grandma's coming for a visit. And my grandma's 97 years old, so she was 95 at the time. Do you want to come down next week and join us? And I thought, that sounds really fun. And I said, well, I'd love to, Dad, but I'm not going to be alone. Do you mind if I bring someone? And Dad says, well, just as long as he gets along with Grandma. And I'm like, of course he's going to get along with Grandma. He's like the most likable guy that I know. So basically, second date was 6 weeks. And he flew into Los Angeles. Next day we got in a flight, fly down to Costa Rica together, stay with my dad and my stepmom and my grandparents and meet the entire extended family. My dad's wife has 4 daughters, all of this stuff. And Murray was a true champ and charmed everybody. And then we jump on a plane, fly back to Los Angeles, and jump on another plane to Boulder, where he meets my mom, my brother, my sister-in-law, his kids, and her extended family as well. So he literally meets everybody on our second date. Everybody loves this guy, right? Every single person just loves this guy, including me. And I kind of fall a little bit more and more for him, if you can't blame me, right? So that was our second date. And then he boards a flight and he's off to...
That was 6 weeks.
That was 6 weeks, our second date. And then, he stayed with me in Los Angeles for a little bit. Then he jumped on a plane and headed out to Australia. And I really didn't know if we had a future. Not because I didn't think he was amazing, but I just didn't want to take him off his course. He bought a round-the-world plane ticket. He'd saved up for 2 years. He quit his job. He left a long-term relationship. And I thought he kind of needed to do his thing. So I didn't really put any pressure on him or, get into any deep conversations about where's this all going and what are we. I just said goodbye, and I brought him to the airport. And he looked at me and he said, I'll see you soon. I promise you that. And... heads off into the airport, and a moment or two later I get a text telling me that he loves me, and I just knew that he'd be back. And a couple months later, or another, I don't know how long, not even 2 months later, he's flying back in to join me in Los Angeles, and we take another trip off to Vancouver Island and beyond. And I think that particular date was 3 months long, and we lived together. We did a bunch of conferences. He came with me to New York and Florida for some business trips, including one business trip that was an entire weekend in the Orlando airport for Suzanne Evans' event. We went to 10X Empire in New York City. We just traveled around, and he kind of kept me company, and we realized we were super, super compatible. At the end of the 3 months, he took off to Asia, and we made plans to basically meet, to Europe. And we made plans to spend the month of June in traveling about 6 or 7 or 8 countries in Europe. And you did a whole doozy of an agenda, pulling us through 8 countries, and we had kind of an amazing time, but also realized that at that point, our relationship had to come back down to reality. Like, we'd been living out of suitcases, Murray was neither here nor there. He didn't really have a home. And we took a moment to kind of figure out, is this something that we want to do? And it was. And the rest has kind of been history. When he came back, we spent that month in Europe, and then he joined me back in Los Angeles. And with his visa, being an Australian citizen, he had to spend as much time out of the country as in the country. So we made plans to spend, I think in October of last year, he convinced me to put all my stuff in storage and join him traveling around the world and living out of a suitcase as well. And that's what we've been doing for almost a year now.
Wow.
Yeah, we spent 2 months or 3 months in Thailand and Bali. Then we just spent 5 months in New Orleans with business trips in between. And now we're in our brand new place in San Diego and we're married.
What?
You didn't know that? So we realized with the whole immigration being more and more challenging, we were going to do it anyway. So we might as well do it sooner rather than later. And I have to say, it's been a pretty incredible deepening of our relationship and joining forces with Live Your Message and Superhero Summits and some of our products like Hidden Story Power. Murray really is kind of the guy behind so much of the technology and a lot of the marketing and some of the content creation too. And it's becoming more and more of a collaboration where I feel like we complement each other and together we can kind of do anything. It's like we can have an idea in the morning and by the evening we've launched it. And it's kind of amazing to share my life with someone who understands what it's like to be an entrepreneur, really understands it, doesn't just get my work, but contributes to it and takes part in it and helps me create it together.
Definitely. I think that's the big thing for me, to be with someone who really gets the life of the entrepreneur, who knows what it's like to roll out of bed and start work first thing in the morning. Well, maybe not this month, but just to start work first thing and then still be working at 1 or 2 in the morning and then do it again and again and again. So that's something that's really important to me, and I'm just so glad that this is, I have this in my life.
Me too, absolutely. I am as well. And, together we kind of feel like we're on fire and kind of unstoppable and ready to unfold so many amazing kind of products and experiences and programs out to you and just rich content. So I wanted you to meet this guy. I wanted you to know the story of how we got together and know that there's another force behind the scenes in the business that doesn't always get the recognition and the acknowledgement that he deserves, but he's there with me every single step of the day.
Which is kind of fine, because you know what, I'm more comfortable being in a more supporting role. I've never been the kind of guy who will get up in front of the camera, as you've seen. I don't really know what to say in front of the camera. I kind of freeze up a little bit. I'm comfortable being the guy behind the scenes and doing all that important work that people like Marisa need in order to shine and to be who they are. So that works out really well for me, quite funnily enough.
And I feel like the luckiest woman on the planet to find someone who can share my business and share my life like this, and who's just an amazing guy in every other way in terms of funny and sexy and you name it. So he's getting embarrassed. He's blushing. So anyway, I did want to say that, Murray's going to be a big part of Live Your Message moving forward, and he's there on every webinar, kind of running the show in the background. He's there supporting me. He does a pass on all of the emails. He helps me make my work even better. He's a terrific writer, and I also wanted to warn you that if you ever get into an email dating sequence with a copywriter, be warned, because you're going to end up married for sure. So I joke that he put me into a 7-month autoresponder sequence with 100% conversion, right?
If that's not funny, don't worry. It's only funny to a certain proportion of the population.
And it took him only, 3 or 4 women to fine tune it for 100% conversion. I also asked him how many times he used that sequence before, because it was so effective.
Had to split test quite a bit.
He split test quite a bit, passed me through a squeeze page, and you name it. All right, well, that's all. I think we've rambled on quite a bit about ourselves, and it's a little bit embarrassing for both of us, but I did want to share the story with you, and you're going to see some wedding photos as well, and a lot of great shares from what was an incredibly magical day, and we feel so incredibly fortunate to be starting this next phase of our life together and to be bringing you more content, more stories, more transformation. And we thank you so much for being a part of our community, and we hope that you find the life, the love, and the business that you've always wanted to, because it doesn't get better than this. It really doesn't. And we each have such an amazing opportunity right now to step up, step in front of the camera, step in front of our tribe, and really do what we're here to do. So thank you, and go out there and live your message. Bye.